Evening all, and I'm sure we're all ready for a time of cool change. Where do we start? Right, this is the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. This is the third one. Hopefully we will not have the interference we've had in previous shows. Everything seems to be going rather well so far. So I'll check on the Facebook shortly. I'm sure I'll get notified. But we've done a lot of test shows, and we had to, obviously, I deleted a few programs and added a few adjustments, and hopefully you can all hear me loud and clear, and there's no breaking up. Right, where are we? Right, for those of you tuning in for the first time, this is the Thomas Williams from the Truth, Honour and Integrity show, and also on the Facebook page of the same name. So if you wish to join our group, join us on the Truth, Honour and Integrity on Facebook. We'll have a song for you later. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. Now, you're going to need to listen intently for the next 15-20 minutes, because there's been a lot of issues going on in the past week. I got wind of it on over the weekend, that there will be further attacks on this country, and further attacks on its financial system, and further attacks on the way we would like to operate within this within our borders. Now, on Monday and Tuesday, the American faction group were interfering with the financial system called the Babylon money system. We've referenced this before, and basically they try and swoop on accounts of various types of accounts. Anyway, they tried to attack and further attacks on the financial system. And also, when that failed, because their recent attempts have failed numerous times, they tried to attack the collateral accounts, which also failed. In the background to all of this, there was a group as yet unknown, but we suspect it's based in Asia, that applied for a new allocation at the Federal Reserve for the sum total of 900 trillion. Yes, you heard that right. 900 trillion, a new allocation of funds, which was declined. The reason we know it was declined is because the attacks took place on the accounts. We've said it recently many times when I've appealed to certain ones who listen into this show, as we know you do, is it's just not working. All your large attempts at anything have all failed. At which point do you realise that you can't win the game? Because you can't. We the people, because there is, although there's a massive amount of increasing numbers, as it stands now, we the people can't collect and win the game. Not without utter chaos anyway. So, to those people who continue with your crass stupidity of control over the populace, you now know by now that you've been lied to. You now know by now that you're not going to win. You should know by now that the people will eventually rise up, including members of your own fraternities, which is increasing more and more by the day. So, those people who have stepped out and are refusing to take orders, which is a rather significant number, I'm not going to give that number out over the air, but it's highly significant. Those people have realised that they have been made fools of even more than the people have. The people within the cabal have been programmed even more than the people have. You've all been played, including all the M1s and all the people who think they're in control of the accounts that aren't. So the Asian faction aligned with the Bush group, which is what is forecast, were the ones trying to play the fun games with the account system. And there was also an attempt to access the Treasury Department system by an unauthorised party trying to verify gold in an account. This was in the US Treasury Department in New York. Yet again, that was denied. So, whilst we are, all of us are a bit concerned about some of the authorities in this country, not all of them are willing to play the game. And as we said many times, there's a lot of them who've now stepped out. There's division within the agencies, all agencies. Of course, we've covered previously about the mirroring groups, CIA 1 and CIA 2, FBI 1, FBI 2. The only ones that are not mirrored are the NSA and the DHS, for obvious reasons. So, this is the type of stuff that is ongoing currently. Some people who own all the gold in BLM tried to get some Native American group claiming to be part of a tribe to sign off on all the assets to somebody called the New World Order this week also. So this is, to me, is a sign of their desperation. It keeps failing, so why continue? You know, and the people involved in this country in trying to fix things in a correct manner outside of the factions really need to step up. I know they are, but they really need to step up publicly. The following messages for all the militia: get ready, because the spin-off of this particular round may lead to certain issues. It could also lead to what is commonly known as the sweeps. You will be required. It's not a given at this point. We're putting you on stand. So, you know, we're kind of tired. People who are involved in this stuff, this has gone on for far too long. People making bogus promises. And like I said, it's not just to the people. It's also the cabal members have had a whole raft of promises: titles, wealth, land, resources. You have this, we have that, and all this. And then you realise, or what they're now realising is, they were all promised the same thing. And bad guys are now talking to bad guys about not being bad guys anymore and stepping out in huge numbers. They're refusing to take orders from the guy known as M. Yes, he's not human either. Although there are still remnants in Asia who still think that they can exert control over the human populace by getting puppets, again promising them all kinds, titles, M1s, etc., etc. You're selling your people out. You might think you're going to be awarded that, but the reality is you're not. The cabal didn't get awarded certain things. I've been telling people this for months now. So, a conversation took place this week between the two American factions, and they're basically stifling this country beyond all reason. Neither of them have any viable long-term economic plan other than to destroy the United States. And you've got one half of the group trying to up the corporates and sell the country to the Chinese, and the other group wants to reopen the Fed and borrow gold from, guess who? The Chinese. So both of them are basically selling this country out. Mr. Keenan, you mentioned last week, whether he's aware, and it's debatable, whether he's aware of who he works with or he doesn't. He really needs to find out, because those people he's mentioned are not operating on behalf of America. Mr. Keenan said it himself. We own the United States. Who's we? I'm sorry, but no Asian group, no matter who you are or think you are, owns the United States of America. It belongs to the people. You can take your debt and go and take a run and jump, as far as I'm concerned, because the people owe you nothing. You owe the people vast volumes, back taxes, all kinds of reparation, etc., etc., etc. So you can stick your debt where the sun don't shine, because it doesn't belong to us. So, where are we now? We have another attempt this week. It's all been going on this week, to implement the TRN, Treasury Reserve Note, aka debt note again. This runs equivalent to the previous attempts going back a few years ago for the Amero. Same thing. Same pile of crap to ruin this country and its people. So they're trying to push the Treasury Reserve Note again, and there was also further attempts to pay out on the dinar this week. All of them failed. Dinar stroke RV. RV to me is now, should be renamed to regurgitated vomit. RV. But that's all it is. We've heard about RVs for 10 years, and we said it consistently on the show, although Drake did change towards the end based on information from Mr. Keenan, which is bogus. We cannot have an RV or a currency revaluation while we have cabal on our soil or anywhere else. You're just voting for or putting your energy into the new boss, same as the old boss. Why would we do that? Yes, you may get to the people who bought dinars and thinking they're going to become millionaires off a couple of notes. The cabal don't do anything for our favour, only theirs. So why would you be interested in an RV while they're still in place? It's contrary to what Mr. Keenan says, although he's actually did a 180 and backtracked on it all now. The cabal haven't surrendered. We'd all like them to, But the reality is they're still in place. They're still playing fun and games. They're still trying to push TRNs. They're still trying to sell this country off to the Chinese faction. Mr. Obama still in place. So maybe the legendary Madame Wu will return again. I couldn't believe it when I heard that. Madame Wu. Oh my God. You know, it beggars belief. And I thought Mr. Keenan had a bit more about him than that, but it appears not. So, that people should be aware of is these a group of KGB guys running around on our soil, and they all seem to be protecting the version of sell the country to China program. So they're not here for the people's benefit. I'm not sure at this point, although I'm waiting further confirmation, whether Mr. Putin has anything to do with that or is involved in it. It's debatable at this point. But, so if you run into these people, they're trying to sell you out. So I would suggest they're more of an issue than the alleged bogus Muslim training camps that we keep hearing every now and again. You know, we've heard this about 3 years ago. So if we've got training camps on our soil, why haven't the militia gone in and removed them, or at least gone and surveilled them? There's no evidence of it. It's just repeat bullshit over and over again. Well, I hope we move away from that. Like I said last week, I'm going to repeat it again because it's important that we grasp it. The Asian faction, the Jesuit faction, the Nazi faction, the secret society faction, none of them are Muslim. None of them. And then we go back to the Albert Pike prophecy, which really means plan, of World War III, of the Christians, the clash of the civilizations, Christians against the Muslims. Well, you've seen what they've been doing to try and facilitate that. It hasn't worked. So let's, as Americans, not buy into their plot, because that's what they're trying to do. They did it with 9/11. Let's blame Iraq. And it's quite clearly there's nothing to do with Iraq, but they still went in there. Then it's let's blame Afghanistan. Again, it's nothing to do with Afghanistan, but they still went in there. And then we thought, well, let's go into Lebanon and Syria and everywhere else. Eventually you realise it's got nothing to do with protecting the country. It's more to do with protecting the corporation rights, or what they think are the rights. It's time our own military, way beyond time our own military step forward. Yes, we know you're under threat, but so are we. We're under the greatest threat no more, where these people in your midst are trying to sell your country to the Asians and the Rothschilds. Enough's enough. So the militia need to be on standby. This is not a bogus like previous. This is real. What has taken place this week? 2 attempts to sell our country off to the Asian faction. There was another attempt late March, early April. All of them have failed to date. But there's a lot of country and freedom-loving Americans who are not best pleased at this moment, at the treason that these people are committing against our country. If you're selling our country off to the Asian faction or the dragon families, each and every one of you are responsible for committing treason against this country, including Neil Keenan and his K-team, because they've had sufficient time now to see what's really going on. There's no excuse. Oh, we just went along with Neil. Mark Thomas, in Neil's latest PR Aren't I Great video, which is kind of even more embarrassing than the last. Mark Thomas has done his due diligence and spent 3 months talking to Neil Keenan and came back to me 6-8 weeks ago and says Neil Keenan is bogus. And yet, there he is on Neil Keenan's latest PR. It seems to be quite a thing for these days with people, snake oil salesmen doing 180s. So the bullshittery award of the week goes to Mark Thomas and his Lord of Light. I should have known by that name alone. Book of Enoch, Book of Reptilians, more like it. So, during that 25 minutes, I only endured 25 minutes after listening to Mr. Chambers play his puppet role and read out his script all very nicely. A guy by the name of Mark William came on around 18-20 minutes in and gave further evidence, which is probably why the video was pulled. Was he mentioned about Neil working with the Kuomintang group. Now, we've mentioned in previous shows Neil and his relation with the Lee family. It's the Lee family that are trying to pull the RV stunt, which would crash America's economy and turn us into Venezuela within a week. So this Kuomintang group, who Mark William informed us all, have funded the Rothschilds for the last 100 years. That's a nice group to be involved with, isn't it? One of the things that, because in amongst the snippets of fear porn and story making of Benjamin Fulford, he adds little gems in for those who can discern properly. And he mentioned a couple of months back, maybe even as far as 6 to 8 months back, about a plot or a plan whereby the West had control of the finances for 100 years, starting in 1913. And then, at the end of 1913, the East would take over for 100 years. I think you've all heard parts of that. Except the Federal Reserve decided they weren't going to step down, and they were just going to continue. So this is the infighting that's going on between the different factions. And the mudslinging. The Asian faction have threatened the two problem factions here, which is the Nazis, aka the Bush group, and the Zionists, the dual citizen people. Although there is members in both camps, Mrs. Clinton. So that was their plan, 100 years. The Rothschilds are, who Mr. Keenan mentions has been in contact with, are part of the Asian faction. Now, some of the Rothschilds I know have been approached. The lower end ones. The big end ones, particularly the ones ensconced in the US, will not talk. They're not interested in stepping down. And neither are the ones in Asia. Mr. Keenan's latest, Robert Steele, former CIA, kind of fitting. He's friends with Lynn Rothschild. So we've had quite a plethora of mention of Rothschilds with Neil Keenan over the last month. So we thank him for letting us know all that information. We knew anyway, but something that the people can find out themselves. So the Kuomintang group, as mentioned by Mark William, is the equivalent of the Bush clan here, and also work with the Bushes. Is that something a patriotic American should be working with? Not in my book, it isn't. So we really need to start paying attention of what's going on. Yes, it sounds very, very daunting, and it's a bit scary and frightening in many aspects, and it's a bit disempowering in some aspects also. But I see it as a source of empowerment myself, because all these attempts, RVs, TRNs, stealing the gold, selling the country off, have all failed. The 90% population reduction has failed. The Project Bluebeam, we should have had long ago. It's all failed. You know, Cosmic Voice, whilst many will remember some more unsavoury parts of it, promises made by Mr. Keenan and Drake with his legendary 2 weeks. I've said this before, we've counteracted a lot of the fear porn and the BS that's gone around. We will continue that in this group. Not as a way of knocking out competition, just exposing the truth for what it is. And it doesn't matter who that is. It shouldn't matter who that person is or who that group is. What we all want, ultimately, is the truth. We may not always like it. You know, do I like hearing some of the things about Neil Keenan? No, I don't. I bought into it for a while, and I have to take my own personal responsibility for that, for supporting him perhaps longer than I should have done. Yes, I was aware of certain things going back, and maybe I should have outed certain things, but things got a lot more sinister over the last 2 months, particularly since the first attack on America with the threat of the SKRs. You take our gold, or we'll basically render your country like the same as Venezuela. You know, the difference between us and the people of Venezuela is we've got about 100 million with guns. How quickly will the food run out when the shops get looted? And then what happens? You know, utter chaos. How many will survive? Is that the type of, will we be able to rationalise ourselves into not turning on each other, but turn on the perpetrators that put us in this mess to begin with? You know, in times of anguish and despair, we have made wrong choices. do each and every one of you who's listening really think you will make a rational decision if suddenly you're facing no food with your family, or there's gangs running around banging on your door asking for your wares or food? Nobody knows, and hopefully we will do our utmost, and the teams that are working largely behind the scenes, largely not on the internet, which is why everything's gone quiet. I did a post either last night or the night before. And there's a few reasons for that. One, now, because of the pushback for the likes of what I've said on certain shows, and Randy Morgan's said, and Shane Aruna and a few others that have come forward and said, we're not putting up with this lies and nonsense and promises anymore. Anna Von Reitz is another one. Now, Anna Von Reitz, we've had kind of issues with her, where her loyalties lie in the past. Following discussions that took place in the last 2 weeks, those questions on her loyalty and is she agenda driven are no longer an issue. She's now aware, let's just say she's been read in. She knows who she's, she's a very clever woman to begin with. But the questions remained with her allegiance to the Pope and the Jesuit order. Was she just playing the factions game on behalf of the Jesuits? Now, it appears that is no longer the case. Whether it was to begin with, it was still a doubt, because she did say she was the chief attorney, if memory serves me correctly. That was the correct title to the Pope. So that raises alarm bells. But then she's also aware, like we were made aware back in March, that the Pope was issued a threat to step down because he was routing out the financial fraud within the Vatican Church. And he routed out one or two too many. I had a bit of difficulty with that information at first, but I've since had it confirmed by two other rather reputable sources. And the Pope refused to step down. So he's now under, I would say, house guard, because of the, I'll use Anna's own words, the satanic entities operating inside of the Vatican, running the Vatican. So, right. So we will see more of what's going on with the Pope. There'll probably be a load of fear porn coming out. Is he good? Is he bad? Can I say be 100% sure either way? No, I can't. He's certainly made certain attempts that looks as though it was beneficial. And so I'll go with that. There's people with better, more inside knowledge than I who insist that he's trying to help, or has done. My only concern was it on behalf of the Jesuit faction per se, or was it on behalf of humanity? We are getting reports today, possibly that the Pope is dead. It's unconfirmed, and it's probably more fear stuff, but we'll await further news on that as it comes in. So, where are we going next? Right. The so-called selection of the CEO for USA Inc., not the President of the United States. After the primaries, there's going to be some rather disturbing allegations or truth, shall we say, about Mr. Trump. But it will not come out until after the primaries. So the military-industrial complex is supporting Donald Trump and are backing him, as are the Bushes. And the Rothschilds are backing Hillary Clinton. Now, the Bushes supporting Trump, I would suggest that was a ploy, because the Bushes and Clinton are linked anyway in the Bush criminal group. And it's possible the Bushes are aware of the public disdain for them, and the fact that they would endorse Mr. Trump might put a lot of people off, and then the people will then go to the other alternative, like she's any alternative to anything. So I'm kind of suspicious that the Bushes are endorsing Trump, when in reality they're looking for their girl, Hillary, to get in. So we'll see what ensues over that, but I'm rather suspicious. Now, Obama's come out today and he's endorsing Hillary and blocks the release of her documents exposing her criminality until after the election. You know, why would you do that? You know, who gave him the power to be justice? You know, it smacks to me more of dictatorship than so-called president. Of course, we've said this before, it's not a president. You're not voting for the presidency. We haven't had a president since 1871. We haven't had a government in this country since 1871. Now, for first time since then, the US government is open and is available. So we'll see how that ensues going forward. So something came up before. It makes me like, well, it's funny, but it's not in many ways, how they just slip things in and people forget to notice it or forget to call it out. And this is another example. The presidential primary in Puerto Rico today. Since when was Puerto Rico part of the United States? Was it ratified? Was there a vote on it? No. So they're having a presidential primary in a foreign country for a foreign government. Oh, the irony. But concerns about election fraud, which shouldn't even be taking place anyway, have been growing for days. Bernie Sanders campaign officials and supporters are worried that a series of problems ranging from drastically reduced polling stations to poll workers who can't get certified might be signs of voter suppression or election fraud. Well, we've heard all that before, particularly where I live, Florida. We have issues on counting certain things. Some of these problems wouldn't just hurt Sanders supporters, but could reduce everyone's access to voting during the primary. So what is exactly happening? Well, they've reduced the polling stations in Puerto Puerto Rico from 1,510 down to 432. So, kind of suppressing things, but the issue to me is not that they're suppressing things. The issue to me is, why are Puerto Ricans voting on a so-called American presidency? Right, where are we? 10 to 9. I have covered the Kuomintang group and Mark William, Chinese equivalent to the Bush clan. So, that Kuomintang group have been funding the Rothschilds for the last 100 years. Bear in mind, although I'm not too sure whether it's the same group, but it certainly came out of China, that China funded the Rothschilds back in the 1500s to the tune of $20 million. A lot of money now. Imagine how much that was 500 years ago. So it's not something that we should be interested in, or any country loving or American people loving people should be involved with. Yes, Mark Thomas, and he gets the Bullshittery Award for this week. Another one who was a close second, I know this will upset many, but Corey Goode did an interview with Cobra recently, and his last few interviews have revealed to me fairly startling changes in the narrative. We've covered some of it, and that the SSP are negotiating now about implementing martial law in America and removing the guns from the people. Well, we've now ascertained that the SSP is really the SS, aka the Nazi breakaway group, and that's who Corey Goode is operating for. Now, the issue is the Blue Avians. Now, Cosmic Voice, back in June, made a statement that the Blue Avians do not exist, as described. We made an issue over them being labelled as saviours, and the other issue is over Corey Goode's status as a super soldier and the programming involved. Now, since then, it went from the Blue Avians being a saviour to the Blue Avians are assisting us. Blue Avians are doing this, and then the Blue Avians are doing that. And there's a gradual step down from the Blue Avians are doing everything to the Blue Avians are assisting. And then Corey Goode makes the statement this week that the Blue Avians, whoever they may be, because they're not Blue Avians for the start, but whichever group he's attributing that name to, are actually here for their own benefit and to piggyback on humanity's transition. What a 180 that is, Mr. Goode. From saviour all the way down to someone using humanity for their own benefit. Well, this is why the Blue Avians don't exist. It's a program inserted into super soldiers' brains. A saviour program. Well, it's gone from saviour to now they're piggybacking. I would suggest the Blue Avians are a completely different group altogether. We named quite a few. So, the reality is on the space front, there is no sphere beings. There is spheres. I myself have witnessed the blue spheres and also the white ones, which is never really been brought up, apart from I mentioned it once, I think, in Cosmic Voice. And they are here, they're not beings, they are here to harness the frequencies and the energies coming in from the galactic central sun, commonly known as the wave, not wave X, which is the storm, which was shut down. So I think people really need to start looking at the information that's being put out by Mr. Good and Mr. Wilcock and the money they are generating. You know, you can get listen to a whole heap of shows for free on Cosmic Voice of Tanath. Doesn't charge anything for it. Why does disclosure have to have a price? You know, they're now setting up 2 weeks after we announced a foundation that's going to help the American people. Mr. Good and his rest of his team, Mr. Potter and Wilcock and a few others, Weber, Michael Saller, are now setting up a disclosure foundation. You know, it's just a money generating scheme, and I'm, to be quite honest, I'm tired of it. It's just, no matter if you generated 100 million in that fund, the reality is, as it stands now, and for the foreseeable future, we will not be getting ET disclosure. As much as I would like it. But the plans are, it's off the cards altogether. We will continue, as Shane has stated in his interview with Randy Morgans, with the drip-fed disclosure and the journey of discoveries. Oh, look what we found. It may be not what we want. I know most of the members in Cosmic Voice and most of the members of our new group all want the ET disclosure, and it's just going to cause too many issues as it stands now. I personally think if we got small D disclosure about all the financial fraud, corruption in the governments, the secret society fun and games, the money magic, the dark energies, that would be sufficient to lead people into questioning a whole heap more of what is real and what is not, which will then lead a smoother path into what are the two biggest parts of disclosure, which is the religious construct, and the truth is we're not alone. So, thanks to Mr. Corey, Mr. Good, for letting us know what we knew a long time ago, but letting the people who are paying good money to Gaiam TV, people need to find out who operates Gaiam TV. They're not good. To twist the truth from saviour all the way down to service to self. Well, we've had enough of service to self ETs controlling us. We've got enough human service to self without adding blue avians. So there's the evidence for the people. It's up to you whether you still want to follow Corey Good. I can only give the evidence as I see. It's only my opinion. And I have the same amount of veracity of that opinion as you do. Don't follow what I say. We've always said that. It's always better that you come to your own decisions on what you see as truth. and never be frightened to admit that you are wrong. We've all been wrong. We've all been lied to. We've all gone down wrong paths. Not just in the alternative media, in life in general. Took one job when we really should have took the other one. Gone with one friend or one partner and realised I should have stayed with the last one, or I should have gone with the other one. So, we all have choices, and millions of choices per day. Do we all get them, each and every one, right? No. So don't expect, when people are giving information out, that they're going to be right either. Are those people consistent, or have they changed the narrative? Well, there's an example with Corey Goode. There's an example with Mark Thomas and his Lords of Light. Neil Keenan telling everyone about Nasara and Drake, for that matter, and then suddenly it's not happening, it doesn't exist, and American people have to get off their lazy fat asses and get back to work. It'd be nice if there was actually decent paying jobs to begin with. 97 million Americans out of work. That's not alternative media figures. They're actual figures from the MSN. 97.5 million. Well, when you take the children out, say the children account for 120 million, you've got 200 million people in the workforce, or potential. That's nearly 50% out of work. Why? Because these people who were playing fun and games decided to move everything over to the east. Everything. All the companies ready for in 2013 for the changeover from the Federal Reserve ruling to Beijing. Except it went sideways because the Federal Reserve and those factions ruling that decided they wouldn't give it up. They'll just want to continue their version of tyranny. And so what we've got now with the people sitting in the middle, suffering, struggling, poverty-stricken, enough's enough. So I hope that people grasp this particular hour, because people really need to start grasping where we're going with this, and start supporting each other more. That includes the members of Cosmic Voice. We didn't come here to divide and conquer. Unfortunately, Neil and Drake decided to go a different path, particularly Neil. So, militia, stand by. The military and the people who have a role in this, step up and let's put an end to this nonsense, and we get a real cool change. Right, we're going to have a couple of songs, and we'll be back in the second hour. And this song's going to go out to Walla Hubeck. Happy birthday. Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour this evening. That's one of my favourite bands, Bon Jovi. I'm sure you'll recognise my music tastes by the songs from Cosmic Voice. I was listening to two very dear people to me, Shane Agararuna and Randy, discussing musical influences. I'm trying to think where I started off, because people have asked me, not many people know much about you apart from being the show host. So I thought tonight I would cover a bit of my life and and then we'll go into some questions. I'll bring Chloe in, and she can ask the questions and see how many questions we can get covered. So, musical influences was originally ABBA. I was a very big ABBA fan when it wasn't popular at school. All the lads kind of liked the rock stuff, Pink Floyd and Status Quo, Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. That came later for me, but I was probably the only ABBA fan in the school. Then that's just me. I've always gone or chosen to go my own path and not follow the herd, which leads to issues, as we all know. If you don't conform to society, society turns against you. And I've had plenty of experience of that in my life, far too many, I might add. But it steals your resolve, or it can send you under. You know, we've seen evidence in Cosmic Voice of people struggling really badly, and that, trust me, that bothers me immensely. Being an empath, I do feel maybe too much at times, whereby I've spent too much time, particularly over the last 3 or 4 years, doing a lot for others and not enough for the self. There's times when it all gets too much, you know, including yourself, and you have to take a small step back. I know Randy himself this year cancelled a few of his shows to take a step back, because it can, well, it's not a case of can, this lifestyle and this choice of service to others is 24/7. You know, I've gave little hints that I'm active overnight. I'm also involved in a lot of, shall we just say, think tank type of groups on all levels, with the financial, government levels, and also the ET side. Originally that was with Tanat. It was sad. There was another classic Cosmic Voice breakup, again, which didn't involve me, but it's the way it goes. So going back to myself, I had a difficult upbringing. Life with parents was far too controlling for me. School, I hated immensely. I felt I was taught before I went into school. I know some people may resonate with that, and some people go, what's he talking about? Well, I had certain views or knowledge that I had no idea where it came from until, and this is only a possibility, I can't say it's 100% sure. I remember listening one evening to an interview, I think it was Kerry Cassidy, probably, going back in around 2007, 2008, and they had one particular guest on, and I can't even remember who it was, but they mentioned going aboard a craft, and there was a school of young children, 2 and 3 years of age, being taught, and the hairs stood up on the back of my neck, and I thought, maybe, like I say, I can't confirm it, but I just had no idea where I had certain knowledge or certain beliefs. I didn't believe in religion right from the off, even though parents wanted me to go to Sunday school. It didn't resonate with me. And then I went to, we had in England what was called religious education class. I lasted approximately 4 lessons because I got thrown out for asking too many common sense questions, or giving too many clever answers, or asking questions that the teacher couldn't answer. I made a statement. He was saying God created Adam and Eve, and I said no, it didn't. It was the ETs. Where that came from, I have no idea to this day. Is it a possibility I've come here with past life memory? It could be. It's still part of my journey of finding out certain things. And the teacher didn't like my version of history, and certainly the religious aspect. He tried to make fun of me because I said we came from ETs, and so I chose to make fun of him back by saying, well, if you think that's nutty, how about you're telling me that a gentleman walks through the desert, a bush goes on fire automatically, spontaneously combusts and starts talking to him? That to me is nutty, because we've never seen it since. The parting of the sea, we haven't seen it since. Can someone go and part the River Mersey? No. And then the classic, the talking snake in the alleged Garden of Eden. Have we seen talking snakes? No. And yet you're saying what I'm saying is nutty. At that point, obviously, I got frog marched out of class, and I attended the next lesson, and he continued with his Adam and Eve story. So I said, okay, if we started off as two, that means we're all the product of incest. And he accused me of being blasphemous. And I was banned from ever attending that class again, which was useful for me. I was quite good at getting banned from certain lessons that I didn't like, which is most of them. I had an ET, a craft experience at 7, another one at 12. And from a very young age, as far back as I can remember, from the age of 5 or 6, I used to wake up in the middle of the night and stare out the window for hours on end. I had no idea why I was doing that, but the stars to me perhaps felt like that was home and not here. As I got older, tried to make some sense, I became very, very introverted because I realised my opinions or my thoughts were contrary to pretty much everyone. And that can be quite damaging to your own persona, where you feel very, very isolated. The easy path is to just shut up, say nothing, and then either go within or just accept and go along with the herd mentality. Herd mentality didn't suit me, and never has. When all my peers were buying the latest fashion in clothes, I would buy the stuff that was gone out of fashion, just to be different. So it's the incident when I was 12. There was a row of 9 lights that went very, very slowly and very low over the house. This was, again, at the age of 12, I was still out, up in the middle of the night looking out the window. So it's something that I was looking for, searching for. And then when I left school, I left with very little in the way of the so-called pieces of paper known as certificates or awards or O-levels and A-levels and all that rubbish. If you don't need pieces of paper to tell you how intelligent you are. Some of the most cleverest people ever failed school, Einstein being one of them. Nasser Harim, from the simple complex mode. let's not make everything convoluted, and because it's scientific and it's got to be this never-ending equation. The simple solution is more times than not the right way to go about things. Mr. Harriman, his teachers were telling him the same as my teachers, that you'll never make anything of your life. You're a waste of space. Really? We'll see about that. And so, school didn't resonate with me. I didn't like the control system. I didn't like my home life, because that was another control system. Parents they'd had a difficult upbringing and chose to bring that forward into their life also. My life, I ended up getting married at 19. I spent a lot of hard work trying to correct the mistakes of the previous generation, not to abuse the children, not to smack the children, speak to the children. But, we have a different way of talking to the children in the UK. We talk at them, not to them. They're there to be controlled and sit in the corner and be quiet. Well, no, that's stifling the child. Not everyone. A lot of children will accept that, but not everyone's the same. It's like the album The Wall. We don't need no education, where they put all the kids in the mixer, which is the school gate, and everyone comes out the same. You can't do that to children. That's the biggest abuse you can do to any child, is trying to make them conform to fit in with anyone or everyone else. That child has to grow in their own way. Whilst we're all one, we're also individuals as part of the collective. And we'll never succeed by all thinking and doing the same thing or acting the same way. It's the people that think outside the box are the ones that are pushing largely this movement. Now that's one of the reasons I got into a lot of trouble at school, because I thought outside the box. I always had a clever answer. They don't want you or any of your children thinking outside the box. Follow and repeat, follow and repeat. Even the education system, where you had to think of the answers. Suddenly they were giving you multiple choice where they actually gave you the answer. That's not learning. That's coaching a child to pass a test so they get more funding. That's not learning. When I said, if I had had my time again, my children wouldn't have gone to school. Because the school system that failed me, that my youngest son was like a chip off the old block. He thought outside the box from the minute he firstly started speaking. It was like mini-me. And I watched the education system crush him the same way as they tried to crush me. Only this time he had the support of a parent who knew what they were up to. My ex-wife thought, the schools don't operate in that manner, and then she had to witness it for herself, where they were deliberately lying to get my son into trouble, because he thought differently, he wouldn't conform to their way of thinking. Like I said, it's the biggest form of child abuse ever. Not allowing a child to grow in the way that they would like to be. And that, going forward, has to change. So, then I joined a workforce. I did a job as a clerk for a glass and glazing firm, which I enjoyed for a bit. And then I went into painting with my father, which wasn't much fun. As anyone who's worked with their father will tell you that. And it was during this time that I had my big moment that changed my outlook in life. I'd been on a road trip to watch my soccer team, and on the way back I saw a light in the sky. Being familiar with the night sky, I thought that looks too big to be Venus or Jupiter, which is generally the brightest ones. I could tell it was a planet. It wasn't Sirius, which is the brightest star. It was bigger. So there was two of us in the car, and I watched this for maybe 20 minutes and didn't move. I thought, this is really odd. It's far too big to be Jupiter or Venus. But it appeared fixed in what was daylight at the time. Suddenly, that light flashed, and it was quite far away. And then it went from the 11 o'clock position to 6 on an open sky, as we've just come down from the mountain and we're going into a valley. So you're talking quite a range of visible skyline. And that vanished from 11 to 6 in the space of 3 seconds. 4 maximum. And I thought, oh my God, that's what I've been waiting to see. And whilst I was recovering from that, we saw another light in the distance. Only this time, as we got closer and closer, we got to a point where it was hovering over a field, and I was in the UK, so it was on the opposite side of the road, probably 200 yards away. And you know, when you just go into tunnel vision mode, I got out the car and ran straight across what we would call the motorway in the UK. It's the interstate in America. I just ran straight across. Now, I got to the central reservation. I put one leg over, and then I could see the object. It was disc-shaped. It was very bright, and it was hovering roughly 10 feet above the field, less than probably about 100 to 150 feet away. So it wasn't that far across the field. Now, this is when it gets kind of freaky. And it took me a few years before I actually realized. I remember getting over one leg over the central reservation, and I went to put the second leg over. And then there was a gap. And when I got out the car, it was still daylight. Next minute, I was jolted by the sound of a beeping horn, and I was in the fast lane on the other side of the road. I do not remember getting over the barrier. I do not remember going into the fast lane. I jumped back before I got hit by a car and leant against the barrier as the craft then flashed multiple colours and then zipped into a clear night sky. For those of you who have seen the Jerusalem type film video of the craft that shot up that quick, that's how quick it went, right in front of me. And it wasn't until 2 years later I realised, following that event, we got back in the car and neither of us spoke. It was like stunned silence for maybe 30 minutes. I don't recollect any thoughts. I was still in a kind of a state of shock. And then suddenly my friend turned around and said, "Did we just see what we saw?" And I went, "Yeah." And then we were chatting about it and backwards and forwards all the way back home. But then I replayed it 2 years later in my mind's eye. And then I realised when I got out of that car, I ran across the road, it was light. But when I saw that craft take off, it was dark. Completely dark. So you're talking in the space of 10-15 seconds to get across the road. Actually, it was probably 2, as I just ran straight across it. Put my foot over, one leg over the barrier, went to put the second leg over, and then suddenly I'm jolted, and I'm in the fast lane of the oncoming traffic, and I had to take a quick step back, leant against the barrier, and it's gone from being light to dark. And then I realised there's a gappage in time, because it somewhere in between an hour or 2 went missing for the light to go that dark. Or here in Florida, it goes darker quite quickly. In the UK, it doesn't. Further north. So that altered me drastically after that event. Of course, then it also leads you to becoming even more introvert in many ways. I was frightened to speak to people. I used to talk very, very quietly. So some still say I talk quietly, but I'm a lot better at projecting. I used to mumble a lot because I was frightened to say anything in case people thought I was odd, but then people thought I was odd anyway, so it didn't really make much difference. When the internet came out, the first thing I started researching was the ET side. Well, when it first came out, there was quite a number of sites, but you tended to have to go on certain sites that covered a whole heap of other conspiracies, and I got interested in a lot of that, the financial aspect, the archaeological side, and obviously continue to watch a whole heap of quite rubbish videos that were clearly hoaxes. So every now and again you'll see one that was a lot better. It was easier, not as easy to do the hoax videos too well then in the 90s as it is now, obviously. They're very professional at it now with all the software that you've got. And then that led me into Project Camelot, David Wilcock, and all the spin-offs of Camelot, all the interviews that she did. She really pushed the boundary. I know she's not popular, and I know she has certain issues with she's kind of gone into the fear mode of aspect of things, but she encouraged a lot of people to come forward and give people like researchers like me an opportunity to go deeper into the narrative. So I'll always give her kudos for that. And then, of course, we had the Stephen Greer, who never really resonated and still doesn't. Who's friends with the Clintons. I should say it all to anyone who is sitting on the fence with Stephen Greer. So it's then along come Drake, and then of course the rest is history. The last 12 months. Very, very different experiences in my life that I'm still coming to terms with. Is it real? That's the big question. this astral travel and dream worlds and visions and all this. Whilst I've been fortunate in many aspects because I documented and logged a lot of mine, and a lot of them were later confirmed. So I did get confirmation, but I still struggle and haven't really told a lot of people about it because it's another aspect you can't really validate it. It's my truth as far as I'm concerned. Other people may be interested in it, and I may release some of them at a later date. But this is what I didn't want, was to go down that path, which then leads into quite a circus. Because the minute anyone comes out with new knowledge to do with ETs and astral travel and all that type of stuff, and certain interactions, it turns into quite a circus. And my time over the last 3 years has got time to self is practically zero, as Chloe will tell you. Time for Chloe has gone to practically zero, because this is kind of all-consuming. You're not doing this, you're doing that, or you've got to follow up calls with people and keep in touch with what's going on the intel side of things. Some of it you can release, some of it you can't, and that's difficult as well. Everyone says, "Oh, I'd love to know about this, and this," but trust me, it's not easy. There's times when you'd like to say, when such and such on the page is struggling, and well, you'd like to say, well, this is happening or that's happening, or but you can't. It comes with a lot of responsibility, and there's far too many in the alternative community who've released stuff when they shouldn't have, and it's led to people dying, including some very familiar people to most of us who listen to this show. So I wouldn't like to carry that responsibility on my shoulders, and so you have to be very careful on the timing of when you put stuff out. Intel is not on a tap, it doesn't come every week. We knew there would be lots of action this week because we were warned of it. So that's why I did what I said in the first hour, and hopefully, like everything else, we've had too many false promises, but we just may see some real definitive action towards the weekend. But we'll see. If it doesn't take place, I'll tell people straight away. We're not going to leave people hanging on and hopium and all that. It's not what I'm about. I will not be compromised just to get a load more likes or clicks on the videos. The information is what it is, and that's it. And it comes out when it's safe to do so. Right. I'm going to bring Chloe in now, and we're going to go through some of the questions. I think there's quite a few. So I hope you found that section of interest. People wanted to know a bit about me, so maybe boring to some, but then you can't please all of the people all of the time, so I hope you found that of interest. I know perhaps the ET experiences will interest many, and I hope it encourages other people. This is what we largely, both Chloe and I, have largely been responsible, the unseen work in Cosmic Voice, about encouraging people to come forward with their what would be considered strange stories. It's a baggage that you carry because it's not considered part of the norm of society.
You gotta let your freak flag fly.
So it's time for people to release that baggage that they carry. You should be aware now that no one in our group is going to make fun of you for your experience. No one's going to think anything bad of you. And really, that is something that we all need to look towards, is to stop worrying what other people think. That is another control system. Oh, I won't do this because such and such might like this. Why have you got to hamper what you are for the benefit of somebody else? So don't be frightened to come forward. You will be given support if you need it. I know one or two have come forward in the last 2 weeks. And we handle it very discreetly. Names will not be given out, and you will not be pushed into putting your story on the page if you don't want to. It's your choice at the end of the day. It's all a big stair step. But once you release it, you're releasing the energy that's been pent up, worrying about what other people think. We really have to move on from that. Right. Where are we now? 9:45. We get some questions in. One last thing before we go to questions. Madeline Brannan came up with some ideas, and I asked her to do a post. And I'm glad to see that she has. When she's saying we need to redirect our energies towards solutions rather than problems. And that is the key to the foundation. Like I've said before, it's not my foundation. Yes, I might be the name attached to it. It's the people's foundation. That's the idea of it. So hopefully you will be able to contribute to those ideas while we're waiting for the IRS to process the final paperwork and get some good ideas and inspire each other to be a part of the solution rather than a part of the problem. So thanks for that, Madeline. And now we'll go into some questions.
Okay, first question. Will Russia and China eventually control this planet in the near future through the Asian faction, or will some kind of balance be created between the different groups?
No. Certain people think that they will always win. I'm not one of them. The infighting, they think, will lead to them thinning their herd because their system has become over-bloated, trying to control the people. They think they have, in their arrogance, they can reduce their numbers and still control. I think they're in for a big shock, and I think they've already found that out to their cost. And my opinion is they will not only trim their fat, but they'll eat through the meat of their own groups also. And eventually it'll reach a tipping point where people that we know now as bad groups or bad people will turn against the system and eventually support us. Many have already done it. Now, the issue between Russia and China is Mr. Putin, who still can go either way with Mr. Putin. He was trained to play the good politician in the good politician, bad politician role of the Illuminati. Putin's doing this, Putin's doing that, and fixing this and fixing that. That was his role. I am led to believe that he's not playing that game. Now, it's still debatable which side Putin is actually on. So I couldn't really give an honest answer. But the issue with Russia is they have found out that once China has knocked out some of the other factions, that China, having used Russia in part of the game, and I keep saying China, I really mean Asia, the Asian faction, but they will then knock out Russia as well and expand west. Now, Mr. Putin and his advisors are now aware of that plan and are not too happy, which is why I'm suggesting things can or will change with Mr. Putin. But no, they will not. They will not control this planet, and they will certainly not be controlling the United States of America either.
The foundation sounds brilliant, and I really like the idea of these kinds of collateral funds helping large numbers of people that really do need some type of genuine financial assistance. It's a statement, really.
Yeah, well, yes, it's a fantastic idea, and it will be funded. I've had guarantees of that. There's still hurdles to overcome, some of which, or large chunks, have been negated. But at the end of the day, it's up to the people how those funds are dispersed. Yes, we have to vote on the proposals put forward, but if you have got a project that's going to beneficial a number of people, for argument's sake, organic farming, or some herbal shop, genuine herbal shop, that's going to fix illness.
Apothecary.
Apothecary, indeed.
That's what it's called.
The likelihood of them type of projects will be automatically funded, because that's what we're looking for. We're creating our own food system or our own healthcare outside of the cabal run one, where they're not interested in your well-being. We all know that now. So the more people we get involved in that, and the more people that participate, and the more educated people get by getting the message out, the foundation itself will eventually roll out into something completely different than just, financial assistance. It will generate hopefully an interest of people working with other people again. You've lost that ability. Everything's done by text now. No, let's get back to talking and being genuine with each other, and not competing with each other, and move forward as a species where we're all having some sort of a say and help and assist each other. It's going to be very important going forward.
Okay. Thomas, you already gave us a short comment about what Drake said could happen to our economy yesterday. This is from last week's show. Yeah. You see happening in the economy over the next month or so? How and what is preventing a collapse?
Right, I think I covered most of that in the first hour, Robert. Basically, the two factions in the US, tried to sell us the country and its people over to Asia under the SKR system. And there's an awful lot of American, I won't say patriots because that's another word for fascism, American people who are not best pleased with the treasonous behaviour that's taken place this week. And hopefully we may see some of the things that Drake mentioned going back 4 years ago. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. But there's a lot of people finding out this week that their so-called people alongside them, work colleagues, have tried to sell this country and its people down the river, and they're not best pleased, and neither should they be. And it's long past time for them to do something.
Okay, can you speak to this group about the Judge Naidu and the monetized birth certificate program? My main question is, how will the cabal allow this? I know this is a loaded question and it speaks to the future unknowns as well, but can you attempt to shed some light, and do you think it's a good idea to do the program, and why or why not?
Having looked into it, yes, it can work. It works. So what you got to remember is, people say, well, the cabal won't allow it, but what you're doing is putting volumes of funds into their system. When you do that, they make money on it, and they don't particularly care where the money comes from. You've seen the vast volumes sitting in banks from drug dealing. It's reputed that up to 60% of US cash is drug money. So the banks don't care. They'll take your money and put it on a platform. And no doubt that they have various ways to make more than the average person would investing in it. So that's kind of where, put that back. So it is a good program. It can work. My only concern with it was, there was two concerns which Dr. Naidu addressed on previous shows, is where the birth certificates were going. Is it a case of, well, it's coming out of the UN/Vatican IMF program into the Asian East program? And he suggested that that was not the case. The only other issue is not whether it'll work or not, is whether they're going to get the 20,000 required to go onto the platform. So it's, I would have liked to have seen them being a bit more flexible with the, with the payments. If either it must have been going 18 months now, I think. Well, if it's something like $10, $15 a month, we either probably would have had the 20,000 now. Instead, it's kind of stalled at 4,500. Others said they're going to put in, but like everything else, it never comes to fruition. So suddenly you've got 4,500 sitting there waiting for another 3 courses. And so they really, I would have liked to have seen them being a bit more flexible with a payment system, where you got donations coming in, even people that don't want to participate, but perhaps it would take put donations in and can be given either the donations back once the platform is up and running, or the donation with a bonus. There's various ways of doing things, but $250 to a lot of people, $300 with the admin fee, is a lot of money to lay out for a lot of people. And that's my only was my concern then, and it still is now.
You should address that second part.
As for the second part of that question,
I think I'll read it first. Why is Dr. Naidu so verbally abusive, especially towards American people? He doesn't mean it individually. I've spoken with him at length in calls. He's been helping me with with Thomas's legal stuff and with the foundation stuff. I think it speaks to his experience as a lawyer, and when he's speaking that way about the American people, he's actually referring to the collective American. It's never like personally directed the way that Neil Keenan's verbal abuse was personally directed. It's more about the country overall. And he knows America's been heavily programmed. So he's tough loving us with his verbal abuse. But I don't think it's a personally directed individual direction of verbal abuse.
No, I agree. He gets frustrated the same as everyone else does at the apathy. He's come up with a number of ideas and plans to do with Drake, and Drake goes away and tries to sort things out, and then nothing comes of it. And so then other people from America come forward to him and say, well, we can do this and we can do that, and again it falls on deaf ears, and so suddenly and then the funds were stolen. $27,000 was stolen by the people in the Cherokee tribe, and so it's kind of built up in him personally, and I think he's kind of wrong in labeling all as idiots, but I think it's a sign of his frustration. He basically wants us to get moving forward and shut these people down and let's go forward with it. And then suddenly, the minute anything is required to come to fruition, it ends. And so a lot of it is frustration in the American people he's dealt with for not bringing things to fruition.
Okay, is Nibiru and the Anunnaki aliens another construct of mind control and possible Project Bluebeam? Is there, in fact, nothing to these stories?
No. The Anunnaki are real. They're still here. The Draco part of them, anyway. My understanding, there's 5 groups of Anunnaki, different species. Anunnaki is not the real name. It's something rather similar, but it's not the real name. But it's what most people are familiar with the Sumerian tablets and all that stuff. They're not. They are real. They're not another construct. Nibiru, well, there's been a lot written about that. Far too much, in my opinion. It's not crashing into our solar system. It's not crashing into Earth. And I think Chloe knows a bit more about that particular. It's more of a system rather than an individual planet, but it comes under many guises of names. Wormwood,
Herculobus. Nemesis is actually the sun. Nibiru is another one of the planets. It's a mini system that has an angled orbit to our system, so it travels through it, and it's a lot smaller system than ours, and it's also spiraling and moving on a elliptical orbit at an angle to the plane that our planets move on, which obviously is in the past, it did cruise by Earth. That's why we have the collective memory of this story of it swinging by and causing havoc. But it hasn't for some time. It had its course corrected because it was basically told to quit doing that. And that kind of indicates that maybe one of, that there may be planetary-sized crafts if they can actually change their orbit a bit. But yeah, Herculopolis, Wormwood, Nibiru, and I can't remember the other name. Those are all the names of the planets on it. And Anunnaki, interestingly, the real Anunnaki name is Nanunnaki, which is sort of a mishearing on our part to take up the Anunnaki and just drop the N in front. But the Draco aren't Nanunnaki. They took that title to use because of our collective memory of Nibiru, to use the myth, the collective memory of it, to use it as one of the cycling fear porn, more psyops. It's not a threat. Both are real.
All right. We're going to take a musical break now, and then we'll be back with some more questions. Let me just see. I haven't got one ready now. This one will do. Okay. This is going out to Madeline Brannan. Show me the way. Well, I think that's the most favourite song of our group. It was in CV as well. Stick your new world order up your ass. Well, I would suggest it's we are the 99.25% to 99.33% at the moment. So that gives you some idea of where we're going, or where we're at, I might add. Right. We'll go on to some more questions for maybe 15-20 minutes, and then we'll wrap this show up, and we'll see where we get with these questions.
You mentioned a few months ago on CV that the ETs have given us a grace period of time for humanity to get its act together and unite. Does this still stand? And if so, how long do we have?
Yes, it still stands. The majority of them, certainly, let's go back to the control system. The original control system of the Draco is, apart from its minions, mainly the Marduk, and a couple of the sons, still causing a bit of havoc with the financials and the control system, largely out of the east. But they do have influence all over, although a lot of people are stepping out of that, and I mean people. So they're refusing to take orders from them, which is encouraging, and that way, once we get to a certain tipping point, they'll have lost all their control, and then you're left with very few, in my opinion. So then the parents. Now, Shane gave me this analogy with the parents. They went, of course, from 21 down to 3. The 2 twins and the other individual. All 3 are female. And what was said with them is, the analogy given is that humanity is in a maze. And just as it gets to step out of the maze, the parents move the walls. You have to negate down blind alleys and eventually get to where we need to be. I have a feeling, a strong feeling, we will escape the walls. So the Covens are still playing games with the black magic, but there's a lot fewer than before. And the Illuminati has turned into the factions who are playing more games with each other than they are with the people. And so it's up to the people now to take advantage of that opening and step forward. The simplest solution is we don't play their game. We don't play their election games. It becomes like a habit. Here's election time, we must vote, we must align because I've always voted Democrat or I've always voted Republican. Each and every person who listens to this show has never voted for a politician in their life. And people need to understand that. You've never voted for a politician of the real organic US government in your lifetime. So why continue it by playing their game? The best thing, no more, that can happen to this country is everyone stands up and refuses to vote. They've already decided who they're going to appoint. I think it's fairly obvious at this point. But it doesn't matter whether it's Hillary or it's Trump. It's the same thing again. The illusion of change. So, the only thing that can change is the people that follow it. Think and act differently. This is what this show is going to be about. Thinking and acting in a different manner. Not following old habits. Well, all my family have voted Democrat, so we've got to carry on. No, there is no Democrat and Republican. That's the illusion. The illusion that you have a choice when your own consciousness is telling you you haven't got a choice. You know you haven't got a choice. So why continue to play the game? Don't. Step out of it. Go and build your own garden, create your own food. The foundation will help a lot of people who are interested in doing that. So we create our own system and we work around them and through them and over them eventually. That's the idea. We can't keep doing the same thing, following orders. That's all we're doing. So we've got roughly at the outer limits 8 years to get our act together. At the outer limits, things could change. We may do a show explaining what those changes are between Shane and I coming up soon. It will be material that is largely not being discussed on the internet. There's been hints at it. It will shock some. It will shock many. But this is the big change. Someone would describe it as a transition, and technically it is. I mentioned previously about returning to natural light and natural conditions. That gives you the hint of where that show will be going. And so, yes, there is a grace period of time for humanity to all come together and finally step out of this illusion that the cabal have played on us and create a better world for all, not the few.
Is Simon Parkes on the side of humanity, or is he a disinfo agent?
Simon Parkes, my issue with him is some of his information started off, to me personally, rather interesting. And suddenly it started changing. And that it was sufficient for me to then step out of it. That doesn't mean to say that everyone has to follow my path. You have to come to your own conclusions. People have asked me the question, I'll give you an answer. But that is where I see it. My issue with Simon Parkes, I covered a couple of shows back, is he really needs to deal with his mantid friends and tell them to stop stealing the water. So if Mr. Parkes is on the side of humanity, he can go and interact with his mantid friends and tell them to quit it. Then we'll hopefully he'll come back to the table and achieve something. But he's got a lot of knowledge, Simon Parkes. He's well read in, and he's got the connections because of his involvement in politics, which was not easy to do in the UK. To get voted in with the alternative media background that he has, and the fact that he admitted he was involved with ETs, is not an easy path to do in the UK. They're a lot more quick to dismiss things in the UK. The herd mentality is far deeper in the UK than it is in the US. A lot more people are a lot more open to certain things. I know the American people or people listen to this show will probably turn around and say, well, it doesn't appear, they all sound like sheep to me. But you can at least approach people. The fact that the surveys are saying that 50 to 60% of Americans believe there's ET. %.
That's what surprises me about how he's a politician and speaks out on this. I mean, Paul Hellyer, the Canadian guy, he was retired when he came out speaking about this at the UFO conference. That's one of the things that makes me go, I don't, because especially what you just said, those stats in the UK, how come he's a politician? And the other thing that bothers me about Simon Parkes is his own description of how he's like a spliced, his soul is part Draco, part mantid. To my understanding about souls, you're one type of soul unless you're a walk-in. It's the only way. I don't know how I come to that conclusion. It's just, I guess, my understanding of genetics. If he's a hybrid soul, then it doesn't, to fit into a physical human body. There was some modifications done that speak to something being not right. But this is just my theory. I don't understand that description. I've never heard anyone else say it, and it does kind of tweak me to him being some sort of a walk-in, that coupled with his vast amount of knowledge. And then how he's a politician, and that's fine where he is. All right, next question. Is it, in fact, true that Americans are not really threatened by any outside object or external entity and any foreign nation? Is it true that the only real threat to the American people is the government?
Up until 12 months ago, I would have agreed with most of that, Ben, and there is aspects of within that question. It's quite loaded in many ways. That is both true and not true. One of the things that I've mentioned quite a lot when we were in CV is these never-ending threats to the American people. The Russians are coming, the commies are coming, African killer bees, Taliban's coming. It's been endless over 40, and the nuclear threat, teaching children to jump under a desk in the event of a nuclear blast, like that's going to make any difference. All they're doing is conditioning the child into fear, which then goes into adult life. And so any time the news puts out, there's a threat from such and such, and the latest one is the Muslims, it's triggering. That starts in the school program. And so there is parts of that where the external entity and threats from foreign nations were pure fear programming. Now, is it true that the only real threat was the American people as the government? That aspect I would have agreed 12 months ago, and I now realise, given all the evidence that I now have and the supporting evidence I've been shown, the American government is about as are just useful puppets to these people that operate the government, or the so-called government. People think if you remove Obama, there's your answer, that fixes everything. No, it doesn't. Or you remove McCain, or we could all, or Clinton, or Jeb Bush. There's always another puppet that will come forward, being offered inducements to do so. There's a number of people, famous in inverted commas, who have sold their soul out to the devil for the fame and the wealth and fortune. It's time those people realised they took a very bad path, and their life, like ours, is now under threat. They decided that their numbers are too top heavy. So do you think they're going to remove the big names? No, they're not. They're going to remove the lower levels. And some of those people in Congress are lower level, whether you like it or not. So, yes, there is certain aspects of what masquerades as our government. But what's taken place now, where the Asian faction is currently a big issue to this country and the threat to this country. Obviously, we've also got the two factions ensconced in this country, which is the Nazi group and the Zionist group, that also have to be dealt with. So there's I hope that answers the question. Yes, it was previously, but don't think for 1 minute that this group of people masquerading as the US government has any sort of control or power, because they don't.
Is the recent interest in possible major earthquakes in the Pacific Northwest based on anything real?
To be honest, I don't know anything about that story, about the possible major earthquakes. I would suggest, like all the rest of it, it's more fear porn. Is FEMA attempting to terrorise the people by the insinuation? Yes, absolutely. That's what it is. This is how they operate programs, and then they get people in alternative media to push those programs. This is what this absolutely sick to death of people attempting or appearing to be helping humanity when all they're doing is pushing an agenda that ultimately, despite what those people think, that they're not replaceable. They are the same as everybody else. So there is going to be more earthquakes. The changes in frequency on the planet are going to make sure that the fact that the planet is actually expanding, the fact that some of the veils have come down, allows further expansion of not only frequencies but also more light. And as more light comes in, you'll see more changes. You'll see a polarization of the people. I think most of us are already seeing that. I did warn of this on the December the 30th show, that people you thought were good were not, and people you thought were bad were not either. It will get confusing and convoluted, and this is only just the start of it. The rest of the year you will see further exposures on all levels. So I'm sure most of us will be looking forward to that, but it's still it's not pleasant. Yeah.
Are we seeing a high alert for the Euros in France? What is the likelihood of a staged attack?
Well, for the benefit of the American people, the Euros is not the currency in this case. The Euros is the European Championships, which is the soccer that takes place for the European countries every 4 years, and the tournament is in France. And yes, they are on high alert for various reasons. Again, it's to create fear, largely. Is it possible that one particular faction will do something to cause an issue there? It's possible. There's a lot of people wary that it can be used as a staged attack, because they were threatening to do it in Brazil and also the Olympics in Russia. But those events passed. Thankfully, staged attack free. I'm hoping that this is the case in France, which starts at the weekend. But we always have to be, the people that are involved have to be on high alert and aware, but largely it's for putting the population in fear. Alright, where are we now? Let's see if we can fit one more question in. This one.
It was always said that the good guys had a new financial system in place when the old one crashed. So was that a fairy tale too?
No, it was not a fairy tale, but I don't think it was as extensive as it was portrayed. It's been a kind of concern of mine over a couple of years, but Drake kept saying, no, we've got plans in place, we've got plans in place. Well, I think Drake was perhaps a bit naive, because the new financial system that was in place was another cabal one. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that Drake was aware of that. The likelihood is not. I'm not too sure about Mr. Keenan in that aspect. But the new financial system is new boss, same as the old boss, as explained in the first hour, the TRNs. Now, Drake did mention this, I think in March, which raised eyebrows. We just can't fall for the same crap again. There is sufficient good guys. We'd like more. And sufficient good guys are doing a lot of work behind the scenes, 18, 19, 20 hours a day, every day of the week, trying to create a new system where the people can go forward in a fair, transparent, poverty-free, clean environment, clean water, everything. And we're making good progress. We'd like it to be quicker. We'd all like that. We'd all like Drake's famous green light or the red light or whichever light you want to choose. But until then, it's a case of all of us staying strong and, more importantly, all of us supporting each other. This is what our group's been based on. It's what we engineered in CV, of everyone looking after each other, and largely that is the case. Yes, you will always have the odd person who likes to play games, and that's part of life, you know. Not everyone can be good and not everyone can be bad either, so it's just a case of staying strong, stick in there, and be prepared for anything. Chloe, do you want to have a quick say?
Nothing really. Next week's show is going to be great. I'm glad the sound got better. Not much. I'm kind of, my brain's kind of fogged today, just like my hoarse voice.
Yeah, she got a husky voice on today. Right. Okay. I hope you enjoyed the show. I know some of you probably want to listen to the first hour again. You should do. We cannot and will not tolerate clowns thinking that they own this country or its people. And rest assured, there's plenty of us working to prevent